The red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the Galactic Council station. Commander Zeftal's four arms moved quickly over his control panel as the distress signal came through the speakers again and again. Council Command. This is Harvest Dawn. We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack. Cathara raiders have found us. Our shields are failing. We have 50,000 civilians on board. Men, women, and children from 12 different worlds. Please help us. Anyone who can hear this, please help us. The voice belonged to Captain Mira Voss, a human who commanded the colony ship. But most of the passengers were not human. They were families from the peaceful worlds of the inner systems. Farmers, teachers, engineers, and their children, all of them were trying to start new lives on the frontier worlds. Commander Zeftal's scales turned pale blue with worry. The Cathara raiders were the worst kind of criminals in the galaxy. They did not just rob ships. They took people and sold them as slaves in the dark markets beyond civilized space. No one had ever escaped from them once they were captured. Where is our nearest patrol fleet? Zeftal asked his aide. The 7th Fleet is 3 weeks away at best speed, the young officer replied. The 14th Fleet is even farther, 3 weeks. The Harvest Dawn would be nothing but empty metal floating in space by then. The Cathara would take everyone and disappear into the void between stars. Zeftal looked at the star map on his screen. Red dots showed where council fleets were positioned. All of them were too far away. The green dot that was the Harvest Dawn sat alone in empty space, surrounded by the angry red markers of Cathara ships. Send the distress call to every military force in the sector, he ordered. Every single one. Sir, that includes the newer species. The ones who just joined the galactic community. I said everyone. This is 50,000 lives we are talking about. His aide's fingers danced over the communication array. The message would go out to the Altarian Defense Force, the Centauri Guard, the Vegan Republic Navy, and dozens of other fleets. It would also go to the newest members of the galactic community, the species that others whispered about in the corridors of the council chambers, the humans. Most council members did not know what to think of humans yet. They had only made contact with the wider galaxy 5 years ago. Before that, they were just another primitive species on a small blue world in a quiet corner of space. No one paid attention to them. But then the Centauri rebellion happened. The mining colonies of the Centauri system had risen up against their corporate masters. It was a local problem that should have stayed local. But the corporations hired mercenary fleets to bomb the rebel colonies back into submission. They were going to kill millions of innocent people. That was when the humans showed up. Nobody invited them. Nobody asked for their help. They just appeared in the Centauri system with a fleet of ships that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen. Dark metal hulls covered in weapon ports. No fancy colors or decorative elements. Just pure function and deadly purpose. The mercenary fleets were bigger. They had more ships and better technology. On paper, the humans should have been crushed in the first battle. Instead, they tore through the mercenaries like a plasma cutter through soft metal. But it was not just how they fought. It was why they fought. When the mercenary commander tried to surrender, the human admiral accepted. But when that same commander tried to run with half his fleet to bomb civilian targets, the humans hunted down every single ship and destroyed them all. After the battle, reporters asked the human admiral why his people had gotten involved. His answer became famous across the galaxy, because someone had to. Now those same humans were somewhere out in the dark between stars. Their 3rd Expeditionary Fleet was on patrol duty near the frontier. If the distress call reached them, would they come? Message sent to all forces, sir, the aide reported. How long for responses? The Altarians will need 6 hours to make a decision. The Vegans will want to consult their parliament first. That could take days. The others? He shrugged with all 4 of his shoulders. Zeftal closed his eyes and tried not to think about what was happening to the people on the Harvest Dawn right now. The Cathara were not kind to their prisoners. They would separate families. Parents would watch their children disappear into cargo holds. The strong would be sent to work in mines that killed most slaves within a year. The weak would simply be thrown out airlocks. Sir, the communications officer called out. We have a response. Already? Which fleet? The Terran Federation 3rd Expeditionary Fleet. Admiral Sarah Chen commanding. Zeftal felt a spark of hope. The humans had responded first, just like at Centauri. What do they say? The communications officer looked confused. Just 2 words, sir. We're coming. That's it? Yes, sir. Oh, and they included their current position and estimated time to the Harvest Dawn's last known coordinates. Zeftal pulled up the navigation data. His hope flickered and nearly died. They're 12 hours away at maximum speed. Yes, sir. But, sir, the communications officer hesitated. According to this data, they changed course toward the Harvest Dawn before we even finished sending the distress call. That's impossible. The transmission takes time to cross space. I know, sir, but the timestamps don't lie. They were already moving to intercept before our message reached them. Zeftal stared at the numbers on his screen. Either there was an error in the system, or the humans had somehow known about the attack before anyone else. He had heard rumors about human intelligence networks. Some said they had spies everywhere. Others claimed they had technology that could listen to communications across impossible distances. But there was another possibility. One that made his scales turn cold with fear and respect at the same time. Maybe the humans were not responding to the distress call at all. Maybe they were already hunting the Cathara. The Harvest Dawn signal came through again, weaker this time. Hull breach on deck 7. They're boarding us. If anyone can hear this, tell our families we tried to make it home. Zeftal gripped his command chair with all 4 hands. 12 hours. Could the people on that ship hold out for 12 hours against Cathara raiders? He had read the reports about human military doctrine. They did not believe in acceptable losses when innocent lives were at stake. They would come to help the Harvest Dawn, even if it meant flying into a battle they could not win. The question was whether they would arrive in time to save anyone, or just in time to avenge them. Keep monitoring all channels, he ordered, and pray to whatever gods you believe in that the humans are as good at war as the stories say they are. In the darkness of space, 50,000 innocent people waited for salvation. And somewhere in that same darkness, the deadliest fleet humanity had ever built was racing toward them at speeds that should have been impossible. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when someone threatened people under human protection. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TNS Retribution, watching the stars stretch into lines as her fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. The distress call from the Galactic Council still echoed in her mind, but she had made her decision the moment her sensors detected the Cathara fleet moving towards civilian shipping lanes. Time to intercept, she asked her navigation officer. 11 hours, 43 minutes at current speed, Admiral. Lieutenant Commander Park replied. He was young for his rank, but humans had learned to promote based on ability rather than age when survival was at stake. Chen nodded and turned to study the tactical display. 37 ships made up her 3rd expeditionary fleet. They were not the biggest ships in the human navy, but they were the most experienced. Every captain in her fleet had fought in at least 3 major battles. Most of them had scars to prove it. The bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency around her. Humans, mostly. But there were also representatives from 6 other species who had volunteered to serve on Terran ships. They wanted to learn human military tactics firsthand. What they had learned instead was something much more important. They had learned what it meant to be human. Admiral, called Commander Yuki Tanaka from the communication station. We're getting requests for clarification from the other council fleets. The Altarians want to know our exact battle plan. The Vegans are asking if we've considered diplomatic solutions. Chen almost smiled. Almost. Tell them we'll discuss strategy after we rescue the civilians. What if they insist on coordination, ma'am? Then they can coordinate with each other. We have work to do. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. Chen knew what her crew was thinking. They had all heard the stories about human recklessness. How humans rushed into danger without proper planning. How they took risks that no sane species would consider. What the galaxy did not understand was that humans planned very carefully indeed. They just did not waste time with committee meetings when people were dying. Admiral, said Dr. Kethmar, the Altarian medical officer who served as her science advisor. His blue skin had gone pale with worry. The Cathara outnumber us significantly. Their fleet intelligence suggests they have at least 30 combat vessels. Should we not wait for reinforcements? Chen turned to look at him. Kethmar was a good officer and a decent person. He had joined her crew after the Battle of New Geneva, where he had seen human medics risk their lives to save wounded Altarian civilians, but he still thought like his people did. Cautious, logical, safe. Doctor, how long do civilian prisoners usually survive in Cathara custody? According to historical data, Mortality rates in the first 48 hours are approximately 60%. Most deaths occur during the initial sorting process, when the raiders separate valuable slaves from those they consider worthless. And how long have the people on the Harvest Dawn been in their hands? Kethmar checked his chronometer. Approximately 4 hours, Admiral. Then we don't have time to wait for reinforcements, do we? The Altarian doctor's head tentacles drooped with understanding. This was why other species found humans so disturbing. They made decisions based on moral imperatives rather than tactical advantages. They would rather die fighting impossible odds than live with the knowledge that they had abandoned innocent people. Battle stations, Chen announced to the fleet. All ships prepare for combat operations. Warning lights flashed throughout the Retribution as her crew prepared for war. In the hangar bays, pilots ran final checks on their fighters. In the armory, Marines loaded their weapons with ammunition designed to punch through alien armor. In engineering, technicians pushed the ship's reactors to maximum output. But the most important preparations were happening in the medical bays. Human ships carried more medical supplies and personnel than any other species in the galaxy. Not because humans were fragile, but because they expected to take casualties saving other people. Every human warship was also a hospital ship, ready to treat wounded civilians from a dozen different species. Fleet reports ready for combat. Admiral, announced Captain Torres from the tactical station. He was Chen's oldest friend and most trusted advisor. They had served together since the early days of human space exploration, back when Earth ships were held together with metal patches and hope. Estimated enemy strength? Long-range sensors show 32 Kythera vessels, mix of raiders, destroyers, and at least 3 heavy cruisers. They have the Harvest Dawn surrounded and are moving prisoners to their cargo ships. Chen studied the tactical projection. The Kythera had positioned themselves well. The colony ship sat in the center of their formation like bait in a trap. Any rescue attempt would have to fight through the entire raider fleet. It was exactly the kind of battle that sane military commanders avoided. Signal the fleet, Chen ordered. Attack formation Delta 7. We're going straight through them. Ma'am, Captain Torres said quietly, that's a suicide run. No, Marcus. That's a rescue mission. She turned to address the entire bridge crew. I want everyone to understand what we're about to do. We're going to punch through their line, grab every civilian we can carry, and fight our way back out. Some of us probably won't make it home. She looked at each face on the bridge. Human, Altarian, Centaurian, others. All of them had volunteered to serve on a human ship, knowing what that meant. If anyone wants to transfer to a support ship, now is the time. No shame in it. This is our fight, nobody moved. Dr. Kethmar raised one tentacle. Admiral, I have a question. Go ahead, Doctor. At Centauri, when the mercenaries targeted civilian colonies, your species could have negotiated. You could have offered them compensation to leave peacefully. Why did you choose to fight instead? Chen was quiet for a long moment. Around her, the bridge crew waited for her answer. It was a question that many aliens had asked about human behavior. Why did they always choose the violent solution? Why couldn't they be more reasonable? Because, Doctor, there are some things you don't negotiate with. Some lines you don't let anyone cross. When someone threatens innocent people, talking time is over. She turned back to the tactical display, where the red dots of the Kythera fleet waited in the darkness ahead. The people on that colony ship trusted us to keep them safe. They're teachers, farmers, families with children. They've never hurt anyone. And right now they're scared and alone and probably think nobody is coming for them. Her voice grew harder. They're wrong. We're coming, and we're going to bring them home. The Retribution shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. Ahead of them, the lights of the Kythera fleet glittered like deadly stars around the wounded hull of the Harvest Dawn. Admiral Sarah Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. All ships, weapons free. Let's show these bastards what happens when they pick on our people. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a pack of hunting wolves. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display as her ship spread into attack formation with practiced ease. The Kythera raiders were exactly where intelligence had predicted them to be, surrounding the Harvest Dawn like vultures around a dying animal. Enemy fleet composition confirmed, reported Captain Torres. 32 vessels. They've got the colony ship's engines disabled and are moving prisoners through airlocks. Estimate they've transferred about 8,000 civilians already. Chen's jaw tightened. 8,000 people already in the hands of slavers. Men, women, and children packed into cargo holds like livestock. The Kythera would keep them alive only as long as they were profitable. Signal the enemy flagship, she ordered. Standard military protocol. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a Kithra heavy cruiser. Warlord Vexthor filled the display, 7 feet of scarred muscle and bone ridges with eyes that had seen too much death to count. Behind him, his crew moved with the casual brutality of professional killers. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation," she began, her voice calm and professional. "You are in violation of galactic law by attacking a civilian vessel. Release your prisoners immediately and surrender your ships for inspection." Vexthor's laugh was like breaking glass. "Humans, I have heard stories about your species. You think you are warriors, but you are just children playing with weapons too big for you." He gestured to something off-screen, and the sound of screaming filled the channel. Human screams. Altarian cries of pain. The terrified weeping of children who did not understand what was happening to them. "Do you hear that, Human Admiral? That is the sound of your failure. I have 50,000 slaves to process, and your tiny fleet cannot stop me. Go home before I add your crews to my cargo holds." Chen's expression did not change, but everyone on the bridge could feel the temperature drop. When she spoke again, her voice was arctic cold. "Warlord Vexthor, you just made a very serious mistake." "And what mistake was that? You made this personal." Chen cut the transmission and turned to her tactical officer. "All ships, new orders. We are no longer conducting a rescue operation." Captain Torres frowned. "Ma'am, we are now conducting a hunting expedition. These bastards want to hurt innocent people? Let's show them what that costs." She opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. You heard what I heard. The enemy has chosen to torture civilians to make a point. That changes everything. We are not here to have a polite military engagement. We are here to stop animals who prey on families and children." Her voice grew harder with each word. "I want every Kithara ship disabled or destroyed. I want their crews captured alive so they can stand trial for their crimes. And I want every single civilian rescued, no matter what it costs us. Any questions?" The response came from 37 ship captains at once. "No, ma'am." "Then let's go to work. All ships execute Operation Righteous Fury." The human fleet attacked like a storm made of metal and fire. Their ships moved in ways that should have been impossible. Tight formations that required split-second timing and absolute trust between captains. Fighter squadrons launched from carrier bays and dove straight into the heart of the enemy formation. The Kithara had expected a conventional battle. 2 fleets meeting in open space, trading long-range fire until one side retreated. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to have no concept of acceptable losses. Human ships rammed damaged Kithra vessels rather than let them escape. Pilots whose fighters were crippled steered them directly into enemy weapon emplacements. When the destroyer TNS Warrior lost her main guns, her captain ordered full speed ahead and used his ship as a battering ram to break through the raider line. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Kethmar, watching the battle unfold on the tactical display. "They're fighting like they don't care if they die." "They don't," replied Captain Torres grimly. "Not when civilians are at stake. This is how humans fight when they're really angry." On the screen, the heavy cruiser TNS Defiance was exchanging fire with 2 Kythera destroyers at point-blank range. Her shields were down and her hull was venting atmosphere, but she kept firing. Her captain had maneuvered his ship between the raiders and the Harvest Dawn, making himself a target to protect the civilians. Admiral Chen watched it all with cold satisfaction. This was not war as other species understood it. This was judgment. "Ma'am," called the communications officer, "the Kythera are requesting terms for surrender. Tell them they had their chance. Now they get to find out what happens when you threaten people under human protection." The battle was not going well for the raiders. They had expected to fight a smaller fleet and win through superior numbers. Instead, they were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that fought with mathematical precision and moral fury. Human boarding parties were already cutting their way into Kythera ships to rescue prisoners. They moved through combat zones that would kill most species, using powered armor and weapons designed for close-quarters fighting. When they found civilians, they formed protective barriers with their own bodies while medics treated the wounded. "Admiral," reported Captain Torres, "the destroyer Vengeance is requesting permission to ram the enemy flagship." Chen looked at the tactical display. The Vengeance was badly damaged, but still mobile, Captain Rodriguez and her crew were offering to sacrifice themselves to take out Warlord Vexthor's command ship. Negative, Chen replied. Tell Rodriguez I have other plans for the Warlord. She opened a direct channel to the Marine commander aboard the Retribution. Colonel Jackson, I need your best assault team ready for a boarding action. Yes, ma'am. What's the target? Vexthor's flagship. I want him taken alive. Understood. Any special instructions? Chen thought about the sounds of screaming civilians that had come through the comm channel. She thought about families being separated and children being sold into slavery. Make sure he knows exactly who's coming for him. On her screen, the battle continued to rage. Human ships were taking heavy damage, but they kept fighting. They fought for people they had never met, from species they barely knew, because someone had called for help. The Kithera were learning what the rest of the galaxy already knew. When humans said they were coming to help, they meant it, no matter the cost. And when someone hurt innocent people in front of them, humans stopped being civilized very quickly indeed. Colonel Maria Santos led her boarding party through the twisted wreckage of what had once been the Kithera flagship's outer hull. Her Marines moved like shadows through the smoke and sparking electrical systems, their powered armor allowing them to survive in the vacuum where the enemy ship had been breached. Contact ahead, whispered Sergeant Thompson through the comm system. His voice was steady despite the fact that he was moving through a corridor that was on fire. 4 Kithera guards. They're using human prisoners as shields. Santos felt her jaw clench inside her helmet. Can you get clean shots? Negative, Colonel. Too risky. Then we do this the hard way. Switch to non-lethal rounds and move in fast. I want those prisoners safe. The Marines flowed through the damaged ship like deadly smoke. They had trained for boarding actions against dozens of different alien ship designs, but the Kithera vessels were particularly nasty, dark corridors filled with sharp edges and hidden weapon ports. Everything designed to kill boarders, but the humans had something the Kithera had not planned for. They had motivation. Santos kicked down a bulkhead door and found herself face to face with a scene from her worst nightmares. 20 human civilians huddled in a corner while Kithera guards prepared to execute them. Women clutched their children. Men tried to shield their families with their own bodies. This ends now, Santos said quietly. The lead guard turned toward her and raised his weapon. He was fast. Kithera reflexes were legendary throughout the galaxy. Santos was faster. Her stun rifle put him down before he could pull the trigger. Her Marines moved past her like a well-oiled machine, disabling the other guards with surgical precision. Within 10 seconds, all 4 aliens were unconscious and the civilians were safe. This is Santos to Admiral Chen, she reported over the comm. We have civilians in Section 7. They're alive but scared, requesting immediate medical support. Copy that, Colonel. Doc Patel's team is on their way. How many more sections to clear? Santos checked her tactical display. The Kithera flagship was huge, and they had only covered about 20% of it. At least 15 more, ma'am. And we're still looking for Warlord Vexthor. Find him. Those people deserve justice. Santos smiled grimly inside her helmet. Justice was exactly what they intended to deliver. Her team moved deeper into the ship, following the trail of human life signs her sensors were picking up. The Kithera had scattered the prisoners throughout their vessel, probably to make rescue operations harder. They had not counted on human determination. Colonel, called Corman Rodriguez from up ahead, you need to see this. Santos moved to join him at an intersection of corridors. What she saw made her stomach turn. The Kithera had set up a sorting center here. Prisoners were chained to the walls while alien slavers decided their fate. The strong would live to work in mines. The weak would be disposed of immediately. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the scoreboard painted on the wall in multiple languages. Numbers showing how many prisoners had been processed, how many had been sold, how many had died resisting. These bastards are keeping score, Rodriguez said, his voice tight with anger. Santos studied the numbers. Over her career, she had fought pirates, terrorists, and war criminals. But she had never encountered evil that was so casual, so businesslike. The Kithera treated slavery like a manufacturing process. Teams 2 and 3 converge on my position, she ordered. We're going to clean this place out. The next few minutes were a blur of controlled violence. Human Marines moved through the sorting center like avenging angels, stunning guards and freeing prisoners. They worked with mechanical efficiency, but Santos could see the fury in every movement. These were professional soldiers who had sworn an oath to protect innocent people, and they had just found proof of how badly they had already failed. Colonel Santos. The voice belonged to Admiral Chen, speaking directly through the comm system. Sitrep. We've secured about 40% of the ship, Admiral. Found maybe 300 prisoners so far. But ma'am, Santos paused, looking at the scoreboard again. According to their records, they had over 2,000 people on this ship alone. Where are the rest? Unknown. Either transferred to other ships or... Santos did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Admiral Chen's voice was deadly quiet when she replied. Find Vexthor, now! Santos checked her tactical display again. Her teams had covered most of the ship, but there was one section they had not reached yet. The command center was located at the heart of the vessel, protected by multiple bulkheads and defense systems. All teams, converge on the bridge. It's time to end this. The approach to the Kythera command center was a killing field. Automated weapons tracked their movement while force fields blocked the corridors. But human military engineers had spent years studying alien defense systems. They knew how to break them. Plasma charges on the force field generators, Santos ordered. Thompson, you and Martinez take out those gun turrets. Everyone else watch for counterattacks. The explosions echoed through the ship's hull like thunder. Sparks flew as alien technology overloaded and failed. Within minutes, the path to the bridge was clear. Santos kicked down the final door and stepped onto the command deck of the Kythera flagship. Warlord Vexthor stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the bodies of his own crew. He had killed them rather than let them surrender to humans. So, he said, his voice filled with contempt, the animals have learned to use weapons. We learned a lot more than that, Santos replied. She gestured to her Marines, who spread out around the bridge with their weapons trained on the alien warlord. We learned what happens to scum who hurt innocent people. Vexthor laughed. You think you have won? I have been selling slaves for 30 years, human. I have killed more people than you can count. Your weak species will never stop me. You're right about one thing, Santos said quietly. We'll never stop. That's what makes us dangerous. She stepped forward close enough to see the surprise in the alien's eyes. He had expected her to be afraid. Instead, she was calm, professional, ready to do what needed to be done. Warlord Vexthor, you are under arrest for crimes against sentient beings. You have the right to remain silent, though I doubt you will. You will be taken back to civilized space to stand trial for your actions. And if I refuse to come quietly? Santos smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Then you'll find out why we're called the deadliest fleet in human space. Behind her, 36 human Marines waited for orders. Each of them had seen the scoreboard in the sorting center. Each of them had helped rescue terrified civilians from cargo holds. Each of them understood exactly what kind of monster they were dealing with. Vexthor looked around the bridge at the faces surrounding him. For the first time in his long career as a slaver and killer, he felt something he had never experienced before. He felt afraid. I surrender, he said quietly. Smart choice, Santos replied. Now let's go find the rest of your victims. You're going to help us rescue every single person you took. The hunt was over, but the rescue operation was just beginning. 3 hours after the last Kythera ship surrendered, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the medical bay of the Harvest Dawn, watching human doctors work alongside alien physicians to save lives. The colony ship's medical facilities had been damaged in the attack, but her fleet's hospital ships had docked to provide additional support. Dr. Sarah Kim looked up from treating a young Altarian child who had been separated from her parents during the raid. Admiral, we've processed about 46,000 survivors so far. Most are in good condition considering what they went through. Chen nodded, but her expression remained grim. What about the others? The ones who were already transferred to Kythera ships? We found them, Dr. Kim replied quietly. All of them. Colonel Santos's teams did excellent work, tracking down every prisoner. But Admiral, she paused, choosing her words carefully, some of them won't recover. Not physically and maybe not mentally. How many did we lose? Final count is 317 dead. Another 800 with serious injuries that will take months to heal. Chen closed her eyes for a moment. 317 people who would never see their families again. Parents, children, grandparents, all dead because pirates thought they could prey on the innocent without consequences. They died because we were not fast enough, she said quietly. Dr. Kim touched her arm gently. No, Admiral. They died because evil people chose to hurt them. But 49,683 people are alive because you got here when you did. Around them, the medical bay buzzed with activity. Human medics worked next to Centauri healers and vegan physicians. Species that had been suspicious of each other were now cooperating to save lives. Children who had been terrified just hours ago were laughing as nurses told them stories. Admiral Chen, a small voice called from nearby. A human girl, maybe 8 years old, was sitting on one of the medical beds. Her arm was in a sling, but she was smiling. Yes, sweetheart? The doctor lady said you're the one who came to save us. Is that true? Chen knelt down so she was at eye level with the child. My friends and I came to help, yes. But you were very brave too. You and your family and everyone else on this ship. The scary aliens said no one would come for us. They said no one cared about people like us. Chen felt something tighten in her chest. Well, they were wrong. A lot of people care about you. That's why we came. Will you make sure the bad aliens can't hurt anyone else? Chen looked into the girl's eyes and saw the trust there. The absolute faith that the adults would make everything right again. It was a faith that she and her fleet had earned with blood and sacrifice. Yes, she said simply. We'll make sure. The child smiled and hugged her injured arm. Thank you. Chen stood and walked to the observation deck overlooking the Harvest Dawn's main hold. What she saw there made her proud to be human. Her crews were working alongside the civilians to repair damage and restore life support systems. Marines who had been deadly warriors just hours ago were now helping elderly aliens to medical stations and playing games with traumatized children. Captain Torres joined her at the observation window. Fleet status report, Admiral. We lost the destroyer Valiant and took heavy damage to 6 other ships. Casualty count is 84 dead, 212 wounded. Chen nodded. The numbers were painful but not unexpected. Human military doctrine accepted that protecting civilians always came with a cost. The question was whether that cost was acceptable. Looking down at the survivors reuniting with their families, she knew the answer. What about the Cathara prisoners? Warlord Vexthor and his senior officers are in secure detention. The rest of his crews have been processed and will be transferred to Galactic Council custody for trial. Colonel Santos extracted full intelligence on their operations. Locations of slave markets, other raider fleets, supply bases. The Council Intelligence Services are very interested in what we found. Good. How long until the other Council fleets arrive? Torres checked his datapad. The Altarian 4th Fleet will be here in 6 hours. The Vegans are still debating whether to respond at all. Chen almost smiled at that. The Vegan Republic was famous for their cautious approach to military action. By the time they finished debating, the crisis would be ancient history. Admiral, called Commander Yuki Tanaka from the communications station. We're receiving a priority message from Galactic Council Command. It's marked for your personal attention. Put it through to my ready room. Marcus, you have the con. Chen walked to her private office and activated the secure communication array. The holographic image of Commander Zeftal appeared above her desk, all 4 of his arms moving in what she recognized as an Altarian gesture of respect. Admiral Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council and the 49,683 survivors of the Harvest Dawn, I want to express our deepest gratitude for your actions today. We did what needed to be done, Commander. Nothing more. With respect, Admiral, you did much more than that. When other fleets were still debating response protocols, you were already moving to intercept. When faced with superior numbers, you attacked anyway. And when the situation seemed impossible, you found a way to save almost everyone. Chen was quiet for a moment, thinking about the 317 people they had not saved. It was not enough. No, Zeftal agreed. It never is it? But it was more than anyone else could have done. The Council has authorized me to offer you a formal commendation and a position in the Galactic Defense Force with the rank of Fleet Admiral. Thank you. But no, my place is with the Terran Federation Fleet. Zeftal's scales shifted to a color that indicated curiosity. May I ask why? The Council position would give you command of resources far beyond what your species currently possesses. Chen looked out the viewport at the Harvest Dawn, where human and alien civilians were working together to rebuild their lives. Because this is not about resources or rank, Commander. This is about what happens when someone calls for help. I do not understand. When that distress signal went out, other fleets calculated response times and political consequences. They debated proper procedures and acceptable losses. But 49,000 people did not have time for debates. They needed someone to come right now, regardless of the cost. She turned back to face the hologram. That is what humans do. When someone calls for help, we answer. Not because it is profitable or politically advantageous, not because we expect gratitude or rewards. We answer because it is the right thing to do. Zeftal was quiet for a long moment. The galaxy is still learning what your species is capable of, Admiral. Some find your methods disturbing. Let them be disturbed. Maybe that will make them think twice before they hurt innocent people. And what happens when your enemies decide that humans are too dangerous to be left alone? When they come for your worlds instead of random colonies? Chen smiled, and for a moment Zeftal understood why the Cathara had surrendered so quickly. Then they will learn what happens when you threaten people under human protection. And Commander, Earth is very well protected indeed. The transmission ended, leaving Chen alone with her thoughts. Outside, the stars shone with cold light, and somewhere in that darkness other predators were watching and learning. The galaxy had seen what humans could do when they were angry. But more importantly, they had seen what humans would do when someone asked for help. Admiral Sarah Chen returned to the bridge of the Retribution and took her command chair. Around her, the deadliest fleet humanity had ever built prepared to escort the Harvest Dawn home. They had work to do. Somewhere in the galaxy, there were other ships in distress, other families in danger, other calls for help waiting to be answered, and humans would be ready.